sort of talk about yourself a bit?
Yeah.
Just why you're here and what's your background? How you got interested in the sound?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trained. I'm a musician or composer. I have a university background, but I started working with sound mainly because I was working with performances and a lot of this was dance performances and film performances. And after a while, I got more and more interested in this sound aspect of the set design. So, what can sound do when you introduce it as a component in a stage, along with lights and colors, costumes, whatever movements? Then it appeared to me that you could do so much with the overall experience by just altering or working with the sound deliberately. And that turned into sort of a type of work in its own right. And this has sort of been my the offset of my work, which is also the offset of the compositions that I do when I do something that resembles music more, even though someone say that it's more sound, and it's music in a traditional sense. It doesn't have any rhythms, and it has some harmonic components, but it's not melodic in that sense. So it's really sound-based work that I do. And what I'm interested in is really how sound can alter the atmosphere, how sound can affect the situation that you're in. And it seems like sound in this way has a way to color your perception in general. You can feel it very clearly once you have someone that goes and turn off the sound. Then you have some experience of this huge difference there is in, like if someone completely turned on the lights in the middle of the night. And these effects have been fascinating, and I've been trying to develop sort of a sonic language based on these qualities. So that was sort of a slowly developing process from where it was used in a particular context, where it was a component when you were watching play or performance, to actually the thing that you can create kind of the same sort of, maybe not narrative, but still sort of a temporal sequence of events where you then just take away the visual part, and what remains is like you have the shadows, the sonic shadows of what you would experience with your eyes, and that creates, to me anyway, what I think it creates is a type of impression where it's left for the listener's imaginations to create the rest. So you give them some hints at what's going on, and then subjectively you're filling in the blanks. Okay. So it's really the turning off the light on the stage, and then only hearing the soundtrack to it, and then leave it to your imagination.
Give an example, like when you're working in theater, I really like the way you put it, that it's like set design, where it comes inspiring you.
I think that quite often happens when you are working in, this might be far off, but anyway, when you're working in these studios where you've got the light bulbs, and the light bulbs are always making this sound that kind of really sort of fills up the room and gives you this, somehow this feeling of electricity, the tension in the room. And then which is something that occurred quite often, that we have to move the practice of the rehearsals around to different locations. Then we would be in a completely different setting. It was not just the light that was changing, it was really the whole atmosphere there. So you could really tell that there was something radically changing in those situations. And those things were the stuff that we would then start to experiment with. It would be like if we didn't have the sound of a ventilator like running all the time in the background, and then all of a sudden you shut it off, and then there's a feeling of silence, a whole new situation that was and I think when it comes down to it, that sound in general is about change. So it's not just the fact of introducing a sound, a sonic element. It's also the fact that you change it. Whereas the therefore becomes this really powerful tool. It is when things are shut off or started. Some here sort of just, I mean, you know this from doing sound design from movies also, where something dramatic happens, then they just big sound of a car alarm somewhere, and it just has this effect that there's some element of alarm that is introduced at the same time. And I think psychologically, there's a lot of things on that level.
I like also your way of saying sound is all about change. It's like there is never a situation where there is no sound. Absolutely. So the different kinds of changes that is introduced by you or the environment.
Yeah, I think that's it's often, I mean, that's really what distinguishes it from working with visual components quite often, because it's because our ears are so sensitive just to these minor changes all the time. And at the same time, it is the fact that when you have introduced a sound in an environment and it's repeatedly there, then after a while you most often just forget that it's there. And I think that's also one of the things that's special to auditory perception. And as a composer or working sound artist, then it's a really vital aspect to be able to work with these things, that you can kind of forget the sound environment. And much of the theory that has been written about sound and the significance of sound in general also seems to have this focus that we somehow forget what it is, what kind of sonic environment we actually are surrounded by. And there's often an ambition to really introduce an awareness of what is actually going on, that we're actually living in a world that is so noisy, and if you were just walking into a room for the first time and hearing how the street sound, then you would be shocked. But the fact that you're just surrounded by it all the time, you kind of just accept it, that it's actually there. So all these elements are present, of course, and I think, yeah, the element of change seems to be that things are changing, which creates this emotional state, and it's these changes that all of a sudden make you aware of things, or make you interested, or become aware of these details that are around you. Most often you don't when they're just part of the same continuous sound backdrop.
Do you think this might be different if you are in an urban environment versus when you are in a larger part of nature? Maybe not absolute nature. Because it's also interesting when you're talking about how you were inspired and initiated. You were talking about machines and closed indoor environments and not the open nature, which might be different for some others.
Yeah. No, I think you can find some of the same elements. There's a huge difference in the nature of the urban or natural surroundings. This has been studied a lot by the Soundscape project people, Armory Schaefer, for example. And these ideas of that we're creating a world where urban world which has a lot of functions that is more important than how it sounds, and sound becomes secondary in that sense. So that the result of this development is a sound environment where you can hear not very far. You can hear the closest things to you, but it seems the things that are happening in the distance you're not able to perceive, simply because there's so much information in the foreground. Whereas the to some extent romantic idea of nature, where there is some truth to it, is the fact that you can hear very far when you are in a natural environment, which means that details happening or events happening in the distance are perceivable